Hey, it's Rob. Welcome to Axel's Garage. We're out here with the little big dummy behind the camera, and we're working on the big dummy's front bumper, which you can see we have it laid out here. Now, in the last video, we disassembled everything and thoroughly degreased it and scrubbed it down. Now, all I'm doing is, it's really a second phase of degreasing to make sure that we got all the greasy grease off. And I'm using a Scotch-Brite sanding pad and a pan with some Dawn dish soap mixed with a little water, and I'm giving it a wet sand scrub. So this is solving two purposes. This is getting any residual oils, because we did notice after it dried, when Robbie had degreased it, that there were some residual oil staining around all the bolt holes where we had put a lot of penetrating oil and the grap oil and the acetone mixed with transmission fluid. So what I'm doing here with this Scotch-Brite pad is giving it a scrub, number one, and giving it a sand, number two. And you can see that the green is coming off in the suds. Hopefully it comes up green on camera, but it's green. So that means I am taking a little bit of paint off. Not so much where really I could feel, because these were kind of rough texture. I guess they were rough, and they're a little smoother now as I'm doing this. And I'm just going to get all of the face, and I'm going to keep scrubbing around until I don't really feel any big chips or anything. Like even like over here where you see what you come over here, you can see we got some chipping. That's no big deal because we're going to spray it with textured paint in the end. So that's going to cover all that up. If we were really spraying it to be smooth, then we'd have to get into a lot more detail, feathering it out and getting it smooth. But this is sanding and it's cleaning up. We missed a bolt there. Look at that.
Yeah.
How we missed a bolt, I have no idea. We'll have to get that out. And I'm going to continue with this, and then from this I am going to transition into some 600 sandpaper, and I'm just going to take this. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll wrap it around a sponge, and this isn't body work, so just to give it a light sand, even though the Scotch-Brite pad is probably doing plenty, I'll just go over it with this. Once I'm done with the entire front, I'll go over it like that, and I'll just give it a feel. And it does feel smoother to get it ready for some of this paint to adhere that we need to adhere. All right, so after the Scotch-Brite pad and then the 600 wet, it actually came out really smooth. And as I was sanding it, you could really feel the difference in how smooth it was, and you could see the fine scratches here, but it's very smooth. It's sanded because you can see the scratches, so I don't have any doubt that the paint is going to stick well to this, that we put enough surface treatment into it. Yeah, I would say treatment, roughness, even though it feels smooth, it's a lot rougher than it was when it was smooth paint. My only issue is, like I remember I said earlier, I don't know how well it's going to come up on camera, but there's like this moist shadow around all the places where we put the penetrating oil. I'm hoping that this is stain. It doesn't feel greasy. It's been washed and washed and washed. After we were done sanding it with the soapy water, and the reason why I use Dawn is because it's a really good degreaser. After we were done sanding it, I thoroughly scrubbed it down and washed it again to make sure any residual sanding residue or grease was off. So this has been washed numerous times. I'm still getting that. So I'm hoping that it's staining, not oil that's now impregnated into the paint that's on here. But we'll find out. So I did it on both sides. What we're going to do is we're going to put a coat of black primer on this side, and then we're going to flip it over and we're going to put several coats of black primer and then black paint on the inside of the bumper. And then when the inside's done, we'll get it back over and we're going to bedline. So we'll continue along with this video once this really dries out. And the reason why I'm saying that is because after I washed it, I saw that the paint itself was wet and it was evaporating slowly and slowly getting drier and drier. So I just want to make sure it's dried out for about 24 hours before we wipe it down with wax and grease remover and then start putting paint on it. So we'll be back in 24 hours at least when we start painting it up. All right, well, out here by myself today getting a little peace and quiet. We took the bumper and we wiped it down really good with wax and grease remover. I was concerned where I showed you earlier in those spots that were either oil saturated or stained. I'm hoping that it was just stained and not oil saturated, because even when I cleaned it with wax and grease remover, they still remained remained stained, and my concern was that the paint on this bumper seemed really porous. When we washed it, you could see it evaporating, almost like it absorbed the water and then it evaporated, almost like when you have primer and you wet primer and it sort of it absorbs the moisture until it evaporates out. But anyway, so we cleaned it really good with wax and grease remover, and I dusted it with let me show you what I did. Okay, I gave it a nice even dusting with some black primer, but what we realized was that it's very difficult just to get regular primer anymore. So we're using a paint and primer, because finding plain primer is tough now. They make paint and primer for whatever reason. So local hardware store didn't have just primer, so we're doing a flat black paint and primer, which is fine because we're going to wind up scuffing it a little again and putting bed liner over it. My plan is to get a nice coat on the outside of the bumper here. So we just sprayed it real light, and my thought process was that to get it to adhere to those stained areas where there could be residual oil from all the penetrating oil, and just so that it doesn't lift or I start to get orange peel, not orange peel, what do they call that with the when you get those little like the little like bumps in it from when there's oil or something on it. So everything seems to be smooth. I'm going to let this set up for about 10 minutes or so, and then I'll start going over it with progressively thicker coats, and I'll put a couple of good coats on it to get it covered. And if you remember, what we were talking about earlier was our thought process here is the paint that's on it is stuck on it really well. We're going to get black on it, and then eventually we're going to get the black bed liner on it, so that if it does chip in the future, we have a couple layers of black bed liner and then black paint before we expose the green, so it'll still remain to look good, because we'll expect that the big dummy is going to chip this up, just using the truck in a rough fashion. Alright, so we got about 4 light coats of primer, and then I went over it one last time with a decent regular coat. I got a little like tiger striping going on, but it's primer, so I'm really not that concerned with it, because this is going to get a light scuff again before it gets the final bed liner, which is going to be applied to the outside. So I'm going to let this dry overnight, and then I'm going to set it up upside down, and hopefully tomorrow we got a good weather Sunday. Forecast is for good weather, so hopefully tomorrow what I will do is I will give the inside of the bumper a wipe with wax grease remover. I'm going to start priming it, and then I'm going to put some black enamel on top of it, on top of this primer for the inside of the bumper. And we want the inside of the bumper to have a pretty smooth finish. I think I might have semi-gloss or regular gloss black. We'll put that on the inside of the bumper. This way, that smooth, hard finish is going to attract less dirt and mud, and it's less likely for stuff to get stuck up in there. So we're, when he goes anywhere, whether it's mud or sand or anything like that, hose it out, and it shouldn't, the crap shouldn't adhere to it as much. And you'll see as we go along with this bumper. Right, so same thing. I flipped it over, primed, got a good 3 to 4 coats of primer on the bottom here, and then I started spraying it with a gloss black enamel. I use plastic coat when I can find it. I really like the way it sprays, and you can lay it down nice and heavy without it running. The difficulty here is, of course, the day that I go to spray paint, it's windy, and the curve of the bumper really throws you off, because you wind up not getting a good spray pattern hitting the surface. So I got it tilted up. I got this bottom half done pretty good, and then I'm going to turn it over and tilt it the other way. The thing to pay attention to here was wasting a lot of paint just trying to get this edge and this edge covered well, because that's the spot where it'll start rusting on you. So once this sets up good, I'll flip it. I'll do from like here down to there, and that'll be covered. It's smooth, and it'll be in good shape, and then we can start with the bed liner process on the outside. Alright, so we got a nice good 3-4 good coats of the gloss black enamel on the bumper, on the back of the bumper I should say. You can see here, got a nice coating Paid extra attention to make sure we got those edges good. Even if it went over onto the front, that really doesn't matter, because that front's going to get black bed liner. But now we're going to let this dry real well. And in the meantime, Big Dummy has been cleaning up and degreasing all of the brackets and stuff for both the front and rear bumper, and he did a good job with that. He had them in a bucket soaking in degreaser, and then would wash them out with a scouring pad, then put clean degreaser in, soak them again for a day or two, and wash them out. And they're thoroughly degreased now. We're just letting them dry on the pallet there, and then hopefully this week we can bring them over to the glass beater and get them beaded. This way we can paint them up and they'll be nice, clean, looking like new. Hope you enjoyed this second installment of our bumper refinishing and installation. Hopefully within the next week or two we can get everything cleaned up, painted, bed lined, and start getting these bumpers mounted up. I do have to go over to LMC and order some new bumper bolts, so I'm going to get that done now. You let me know what you think in the comments below. Give us that thumbs up, drop a comment. It's important. You have no idea how important the comments are to grow this channel and to keep doing the things that we're doing. So as always, thanks for watching.